Hey YouTubers, this is Jacques, and part of my series on the settings of the X-T3. Today I will be talking about setting your X-T3 for video recording using itself and also using the Atomos Ninja 5. Stay tuned. Hey YouTubers, now I have a great series. I'm going to leave a link to the playlist below so that you guys can go check it out. It's a really, I think it's a really nice playlist because I think a lot of people, when they open their operation manual, find it a bit boring. So I've decided to go through all the settings that I use with this camera. I have experience. I've used it for a little while. I think that could be useful for you guys instead of going through the manual and trying out everything. So at least you can do that. So we are talking about the X-T3, just a great camera, guys. The new firmware they have a firmware at 3.0 that kicks ass. It really is a great camera for a lot of reasons. For stills, it is fantastic, but I'm telling you guys, for video, it is also now a beast and definitely a contender. So that's why today we're going to talk about some of the settings that I use in this camera. You guys can take or leave. I'm just going to tell you my favorite things to do. A lot of time for corporate video, I will use the Atomos Ninja V to do interviews just because I get great color depth and I can use it in F-Log. However, when I am working with the X-T3 to do B-roll, I actually use the internal SD card because I get a shot that's plenty nice. And believe it or not, internally, this camera really does have some really spectacular image quality. The colors are beautiful, the sharpness. I mean, you're using Fuji X lenses, which are also really fantastic lenses. They're really great. But without further ado, let's get into some of the settings I use for this camera. So here we are in the menu. This is probably what you see, you guys. I'm in the, I'll put myself in camera mode here. See if that holds. Yes. So I am now. Make sure, you guys, when you're doing your settings, that you are in camera mode to do your settings, so that when you actually do your settings, they fit with what you're doing. A lot of times with many cameras, 99% of the cameras out there, depending on what mode you're in, the menu will change for the mode that you are in. Sony is infamous for that. They'll blank out stuff if you're in photo, and then when it goes to video, it's a different story. So let's look at the menu right away. I will go into the menu right now, and we will go right away up to the camera settings. We're going to go into movie mode, and movie mode is the first place I wanted to talk to you about. If you go into movie mode, you will find yourself with a lot of great choices on the different types of frame rates and bit depths. Now, you will be able to navigate between frame rates right here, up and down with your D-pad, and you can go over here into your bit depths. You will have different bit depths offered to you depending on the type of compression you use. Suffice to say, I personally like to work in 16:924p 200 megabits. It's just, and that's internally. I get a great, beautiful shot, and it's really, really nice. Down here, we go to H.265 versus H.264 compression. H.265 is superior and definitely better, HEVC. However, for the spike in quality you get, I would not go for it because the amount of difficulty you will have to edit H.265 is quite extensive. Stay in H.264 compression. That's what I would do if I were you guys. Now remember that over HDMI, you're going to get 422 10-bit. And internally, you will get 4.208-bit. Here's where the thing counts for me when I am working with the X-T3, and that is in the type of compression. You have a choice between all I and long. Let me just move my face out of there, get it out of the way a bit. There you go. You have a choice between all I and long GOP. Do not touch long GOP. All I is just way better, and that's where the big difference will be held in the quality of your image. So stick to all I, that's what I think. Full high-speed record, make sure you note, just a little thing I wanted to mention, make sure you note the shutter speed that you are at if you are at 24p when you go into your high-speed recording. High-speed recording, by the way, is just you shoot at high, very, very high frame rate so that when you do your playback, everything is in slow-mo. So high-speed recording is slow-mo. Just, you know, we always assume that everyone knows what we're talking about. But so in my case, I would go to 24p, 120p right here. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention to you guys, anybody who knows how to check on my series, I show you how to assign custom buttons. I would definitely say anyone who does a lot of slow-mo, a lot of high-speed recording, you might want to assign a custom button to a high-speed recording because it's deep in the menu and it's something that you want quick to put on or off, because you always want that one high-speed B-roll shot and then you want to pull away and go back to normal recording after. So you might want to assign high-speed recording to a quick button on the side. Film simulation, that's up to you guys. I put it on Eterna. Depending on how neutral you want to be, you might want to put it on something more neutral, but I like to burn a bit of a film simulation in. There are different kinds, they're all here, they're all there, but you know, you can also go for standard. When you stick to standard, you got something really straight and something nice and clean and just does the trick and you can play with afterward in post. But we're going to get into what you can do in post when you're working with F-Log anyway. Going down here, this film simulation, white balance. I use white balance auto. I know a lot of people might criticize me for that. I do not use white balance auto when it comes to interviews, however, but in post, I am able to adjust my white balance wherever I want. I also use a reference gray card and a white card to make sure that later on in post, I can change the white balance to whatever I want. I'd rather deal with white balance and get a great interview with a lot of emotion than spend time trying to find out the white balance on the spot. You know, that's my personal opinion on how things should be done. Dynamic range, I leave it right here, standard to stock and what is happening on the computer at 100%. Highlight tone, shadow tone, color, sharpness, noise reduction, I leave all at 0. Interframe noise reduction, I leave at off. Now here we are at F-Log recording, people. Now F-Log recording, you can decide how you want it. On the second option right here, send F-Log to the SD card and F-Log to the HDMI card. So what you're basically doing is creating a backup internally and sending the image to an Atomos or any sort of external recorder you have. So I just wanted to mention that. And there's different types of options in there. Okay, let me get out of there. Peripheral light correction, I leave on, but you know, I realize I should put that on off. I'm not a big fan of all that processing stuff. It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, focus area, that can be decided on the externally with the joystick. So I don't really touch that part of the menu. I don't think it's great to get into. So I don't, let me move myself again. Okay, AFC custom settings. Tracking sensitivity, if you are using AFC, for example, and you are recording internally or externally, you might want to work with these custom settings. You can play with them for your AF speed and your custom settings. But it does a great job, and you'll find out on the next menu point here, which is face eye detection. You don't really need to dabble around too much with AFC custom settings. I just leave it at standard if I were you. Face and eye detection setting right here. If you go into that, I put face and eye detection on, and it does a fantastic job. When you have this camera in AFC, which is autofocus continuous, and you have eye detection setting on and you're doing an interview, it can save your life, especially when you're doing interviews, because you want that bokeh, therefore you want shallow depth of field, therefore focus becomes something very, very, very important, because as soon as that person moves around a tiny bit, you can lose the focus right away if you're in manual focus. Face eye detection on AFC, you can trust the X-T3 to do a job that it has to do. Manual focus assist, I put it on peak, and I put peak highlight blue high. Now there's other choices. There's a ton of choices in here. White low, red high, yellow low, yellow high. It's up to you. I find blue pops out and I always see the blue. When it's in yellow, it's not necessarily the case. Focus check, I leave on off. 4K movie output, this is where you can decide where you want to send your 4K movie output when you are recording 4K. Full HD movie output, same thing. You also have choices. You cannot send it to the SD and send it only to the HDMI. The same is the case here. You have a couple of other choices. And what other great choice, which is really nice, I find, is that you can actually have an HD version of what you're sending, and to HDMI, you can send to your Atomos a 4K version, which is quite cool. HDMI info display. Right now it's on, but obviously when you do have an Atomos, you definitely want this on off, because you don't want that info display going onto your Atomos recording, which is the actual recording. What you want is what's called a clean output. Therefore, this right here, this HDMI info display will be on off. 4K standby quality, 4K. You can decide what you want here. You can put it on FHD. It's up to you. I don't think it changes that much, but I think if you're recording in 4K, you might want to put it on 4K. HDMI recording control. This is kind of cool, HDMI recording control. If you do the right settings on your Atomos and you have yourself well set up. Oh, sorry about that. And you have yourself well set up on your X-T3. You can control the X-T3 from the Atomos, and you can control the Atomos from the X-T3, which is quite cool. And it's done through HDMI record control. You can press record on your camera, and it'll record on the Atomos. Zebra setting, I have it on off, but Zebra is kind of cool. Zebra is something that finds highlights, you guys. Most of you video people know what it is there for. I think when you're shooting outside, it's quite essential. I would also set this to one of your shortcut buttons on the outside if you are a video recorder. Let me go down here. Zebra level, that's up to you to decide whether you want it to be loud or not. You have different types of levels you can go to, but you know, I put it on 50 personally. So that's my case. Audio setting, let's go into audio setting real quick. Okay, here we are in internal mic level. Now, I want to tell you guys, in internal mic level, it's quite important to put this on auto. And you might say, well, why is that? I think the reason why is 90% of the time, when you're going to be using the internal mic on your camera, you will be using that mic to get yourself an ambient sound. That's it. And when you want ambient sound, you don't want to be thinking of it. It doesn't need to be great quality. Therefore, by putting it on auto, you'll get the sound. You use that a lot of time. I'll use the internal mic when I'm doing B-roll. So you want to have good internal mic level. You just don't want it to peak. That's the only thing you want. You don't care if the quality is perfect. You just don't want it to peak. So keep that on auto. External mic level, I put this way at the bottom, baby. It's like, look at that, minus 30 dB. I leave it down there. Why? When you have a mic preamp, for example, let's say I'm doing an interview. I will have an external mic preamp, and I will be sending the mic level to my camera, and there's already a preamp doing what it has to do externally. When I shoot into my camera, I'm shooting line level, and unfortunately, these cameras have a jack that always has a preamp that you can't bypass. The only way to bypass it is to bring that preamp to the lowest level possible. Therefore, I put mine on minus 30 dB, and then I plug my microphone jack. I try to depend the most I can on an external preamp, because preamps in these miniature cameras suck, and there's no way of getting around that. Mic level limit, I put it on off. Again, might be, I just don't like to have it on because it compresses the sound and makes a terrible sound. And I do not want that when I'm doing interviews, at least. Wind filter is off. I should actually put this on, because wind filter will only affect the internal mic level, if I'm not mistaken. Low cut filter also, you guys, I'd put it on. Any sort of rumbles, a little rumble, it cuts the low end. That's all it does. The quality does not change that much. You will not hear it because it goes and gets the rumble, the really, really low frequencies as well. Headphone volume, that's up to you. If you guys do a lot of video recording, you might want to have that as a quick button, just because when it's time to play back, you want to be able to change the volume to hear how well you taped. So that might be something you might want to do for that. Timecode setting, depending, I do not use timecode. I know some people depend on it a lot. You have a lot of great options in here for anybody using timecode and doing post synchronization. I'm with Premiere, and Premiere, when I actually record audio and synchronize it later, I just friggin' throw them in the computer and it finds a way to synchronize the audio. Don't tell me how, but it just does it. So I've been using that the whole time. Tally light, kind of fun. I mean, you can decide which light turns on when you record. Obviously, for example, let's say you want to know that you're recording, but you don't want the person in front knowing that you're recording. You will go for something like, it would be front off, rear on, what it's on right now. But let's say you want to make sure the person in front knows they're recording, like a professional actor or something like that. You'll put front and rear on. You can have front on, rear off, all kinds of different options there. Quite a nice little detail and a gadget, I find, that Fuji adds that to their cameras as well. I find that really cool. If you guys have any questions about concerning video, or you have anything to add as to the way you guys work, please just leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how you work, and we can talk about it, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget, everybody, keep on making something from nothing.